I heard this preacher one time, one of my pastor friends back home in Texas, he said this from the stage. If the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. Why? Because when I am busy, I cannot bond with others in authentic relationships. Margin is the space where connection can truly happen. You cannot schedule intimacy. You cannot schedule intimacy. You have to create space for it. Your presence requires a pace, because here's the truth. If your life pace is too fast, your presence will be too thin. And here's the truth about margins in relationships. If you are really busy, you know what people become in your life? People become projects. And you begin to manage relationships instead of nurture them. Your boundaries that you build, the margins that you build belonging. When you know your limits, you can be loving to others in a more authentic way.
Good morning. Good to see you. Let's try that one more time. Good morning.
Good morning.
Boy, aren't you glad you're here in Sarasota today? Oh, the weather's spectacular. It's been nice for the whole month of September, and October is doing very well compared to last year. We're on Easy Street. This is good. Life's good. So if you're watching this online today, no matter where you are in the country, you should be here. Fair enough? So we're glad we're here, and we're glad you tune in. You honor us by watching today. We do appreciate it a lot. But we're in this teaching series called Margins, and we have a lot to say about margins. We jumped into this last week.
Yep.
And what did we talk about last week?
Yeah, last week the first principle was less is more. And that relationships happen inside the margins we create. And we had some pretty good points and some principles. Like one of the things we said about margins is if we are busy, like overly committed, over busy, it's not a sign of my importance. It's really a sign of imbalance in my life. And so we can't follow Jesus real well if we don't have margins, and we all have limitations to our time.
So what are margins?
So think about margins as, when you open up a tablet, remember in high school everything was handwritten back then, you had a little yellow line that went across the horizontal line. That was our margin. And teachers would write, notes inside there, but it's the space that we have, the reserves. On the highway, we call it the shoulder of the highway. It's that little space that gives us room for error. If we have car trouble, we can pull over, or a bike lane. And margin, I like the way Dr. Bauckham frames it. He says margin is the space between our current performance and our limits. And we always need to leave room for margin. Like if you run full speed, there's no more margin there. Getting to an appointment early, having money at the end of the month, you haven't spent all that you've made. Those are the margins that are necessary to create less anxiety and more peace in our life.
Yeah, and when there's no margin for errors, there's problems. When life is busy, the urgent dominates our schedule while the important slips away. So we take a moment to figure out what is important. That's what we want to talk about today. Our time, our schedules. All of us have limits. There are time limits, emotional limits, financial limits, and we have a tendency as human beings to push it to the limit, don't we? And we push it to the limit morally. We push it to the limits with our time. We push it to the limits with our finances. So what is margin? It's the leftover, the extra. And it can be seen in our lives when we have time to relax. So when you go to the beach and you're sitting there at Siesta Beach and looking at the sun, that's not in your busy time, is it?
No. That's my rest time. And people give me a lot of flack for it, right? But that's why I'm chill. That's why nothing really bothers me a whole lot, is because I set those marginal times and those liminalities in my life to go and spend time with God, because I find God everywhere, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on.
But throughout Scripture, it seems like those who follow God need margin. We need friendships. We need time alone with God. The most important things in our life, in my opinion, happen in the margins. Our connection with God suffers when we lose the margins, when our lack of time squeezes God out, when I was too busy. Now, folks, let me just see. How many of you felt like you had a busy week? Just curious. Raise your hand. You had a busy week. So how many think it was just a little bit too busy? Just a little bit too busy. How many think I am so bored I'm looking for something to do? We've got grass that needs to be mowed here.
That's right.
Yeah, no, just kidding. But I think the most important things in life happen in the margins, and we don't have margin when we say, I was too busy, I didn't have time. But all of us live within limits, and our limits are often based on what culture pushes it to rather than what our Heavenly Father wants us to. So week one, relationships are built in the margins. You can't follow Christ very well without margins, and we all live within certain limits. But today, what about our time? I'm too busy to put together a schedule. See, here's what I want you to hear us very clearly. If we follow the teachings of Jesus, he'll lead us to a place of margin. And there's some preliminary observation. Three things. First is our time is limited. You know, too often our time is, we live it as if it's unlimited. But the reality is, what are you doing in your life that you could stop doing and give you more margin? What does that look like? Now, folks, I'm a master of time management and the to-do list. I've carried a legal pad around. I have multiple legal pads because in case I run out, I have another one. And I list things down in level of what they are. And then I go through and I prioritize them. Sometimes I'll write the whole list again, starting with the most important first, or I'll number them. I have a variety of ways. And sometimes in my life, I'll have this list and I'll work my way down to it. And then other things come up and they go ahead. You know, there are things on my list that have been there for a month that are not done. Guess why? They're the least important things on my list, and they may never get done. But I want to be sure I'm doing the more important things. I remember years ago, I sat in my office, and I have all these lists of things I need to do, and someone said, can I have about an hour of your time? I need to talk to you. I need to get all these things off my list. And I said, well, let me see your list, and had all these things on her list. And I go, well, none of these things on your list would even make the third page of my list. So why am I going to give you my hour so you can check off the boxes? And she's, well, just make me feel better. So I don't want to talk about, people that way, I don't want to mention Sherry's name publicly, but I mean, where are you? Right there. I see you. But Sherry worked for me for 20 years, and I have nothing but good things to say about Sherry. Fair enough? So you give her.
Right.
Thank you, Sherry. So hopefully that'll keep her from beating me up in the Grand Hall. So anyway, but if it's not on her list, it won't be done. So there's things. But sometimes our time is limited. And here's what I want to let you know. All of our time will be spent.
That's right.
You're going to spend it. The question is, on what are you going to spend it? At the end of our week, we have no extra time. When we're about to die, we have no time left. You can't spend time. But we act like sometimes time is unlimited, and we can save it for later. Later I'll get to this. Later I'll do that. But here's what I want to suggest. Someone will determine how we spend our time. For most of us, it's us. I determine my time. I keep my own calendar. But basically, we're in control, but sometimes we're not. And sometimes as parents, we see our kids get out of control. You ever seen that? And all of a sudden you say, well, at 6 years old, you don't let a kid set their own schedule. You set it for them. Why? Because that's what good parenting is.
That's right.
And every now and then, I confess, I come before God and he says, you're a 6-year-old again. You need some help. You're blowing your schedule. Just because you have a complete schedule you can change doesn't mean you should do it that way. And I have to continually reevaluate my schedule to make sure the most important things get done. And that's what priority is. So we tend to allow the urgent things to push aside the more important things. For example, we don't exercise. Why? I think exercise is important, but I set a coffee appointment at 7:30 and I usually exercise in the morning, or I scheduled over the top of it, or I scheduled something over what I think is a very important part of my life, or to spend time with kids or grandkids. Sometimes we need to spend time in our marriages. Sometimes we need to spend time with God. And I'm going to suggest to you today that the time that you spend with God will help you balance your schedule and the important things of your life more than anything else you can do. So if I know it's important, then why doesn't it get done? The urgent will find its way to push out the important.
That's right.
So anyways, but you can see what happens when you're in charge. You can see what happens when others are in charge. My question is, have you ever seen what happens when God's in charge of your schedule and your life? So how do we spend our time? So the most logical thing to do is surrender our time to God. He created us. He gave us time. He knows how much we have left, and it's important that we spend time with him.
That's right.
So want to take us into it?
Yeah, this will lead to point number one if you're taking notes. It says this: once we realize that our days are numbered, we change our lives. Psalm 90 says, teach us, God, to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Reminds me of my good buddy back home in Louisiana, old Boudreaux. Boudreaux was on his deathbed, man. He's about to pass to the other side, the by and by. And his wife is right by his bedside, right by his deathbed. And Boudreaux comes to consciousness. He looks at his wife, Marie. He goes, Marie, when I die, you gonna date somebody new? She goes, oh, Boudreaux, you don't have to worry about that, honey. Let's worry about the time you have left here with me. Marie, yeah, Boudreaux, you gonna let him cook in my kitchen? Oh, Boudreaux, you don't have to worry about none of that, honey. Marie, you gonna let him hunt with my guns? Boudreaux, you don't have to worry about it. Let's worry about the time we have. Marie, yeah, Boudreaux, you gonna let him drive my truck? No, Boudreaux, I'm not gonna let him do that. Why not? Because he don't know how to drive a stick shift yet. So when we talk about time, for me, teaching about time today is more than just trying to give you principles about time management. I think we're all mature enough to understand time management. What I want to do is think of time in this context as a theology of trust. What do I mean by that? Busyness is often a sign of mistrust or unbelief. We don't usually call people who are really busy that. We say things like, oh, they're hustling, they're commitment, they're driven, they're grinding. But underneath all of our overwork, you know what the heart of overwork is? Fear. Fear that if I stop, things will fall apart. Fear that if I do not keep producing, then I'm going to lose my worth. That if I don't produce, the person I love most won't love me anymore because I can't provide anything. But when we can stop and we say, God, I want to trust you, because if I continue to just remain busy, what I'm really saying to God is, God, I don't trust you to keep the world running if I don't work. Because we hurry because we're afraid. We're afraid that the world depends on speed. But what this whole series about margins means slow down, rest, be present. That is the most basic act of faithfulness one could have. Because what I'm doing when I make time to rest in the margin, I am saying to God this: God, I know you're still working even if I'm not. Rest is the most countercultural spiritual discipline you could have in the United States. We live in a culture that worships busyness. Rest almost feels like being rebellious. Jesus rested. Jesus slept in the middle of a storm. Think about that. He rested, he went into solitude, but yet there were still people to feed. There was still sickness around. Jesus resting was not irresponsibility. That was his full trust in Christ, in God. See, rest is a major part of God's rhythm for nature, for us. So maybe the question that you need to ask yourself today about time and time management, or this theology of trust, is not this: how can I find more time to fit God into my schedule? No, maybe the real question is, what am I afraid of that will happen if I do stop and pause? See, margin is not weakness, it's worship. When I rest, I'm not stepping away from God's work, I'm actually stepping into God's work within me. And this is my final thought on rest. Rest should never be a reward for finally finishing. Rest should be a part of your life's daily rhythm for faithfully trusting God with your time.
I mean, in the Old Testament, one of the commandments is to remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. And what it really is about is, after 7 days, God created and he rested, but in our lives, it's not after a big accomplishment, but once a week, every week, there should be a time that we pull out to reorient ourselves to a better place. So that we think that's important.
Absolutely. Here's point number 2, if you're taking notes. Prioritize in light of the fact that our days are limited. Listen to what Paul writes in Ephesians. This is awesome. He says, be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. If we recognize that our days are limited, that's wisdom. What do we mean by that?
Yeah, I think our days are numbered. What does that mean? It means none of us are going to live forever. There's a certain amount of time. It doesn't mean, that we know exactly 138 days from today you're going to be gone, but there's a limit to all of us. And I love to talk to my mother about these kinds of things. My mother's 99 years old, and she just keeps going and keeps going, and she's a wonderful lady. This week, she came down and had lunch with me at 81 Oaks. My brother and sister-in-law brought her down, and we sat there, and I began to talk about one of the residents later, who was a friend of mine, Marilyn, and my mother knows her from being there for a month or so when she was not doing well. But Marilyn was on her deathbed, and she has no family. She's in her 90s. She is a little bit spicy, but very sweet, and I really like her. Does it make sense? I find myself just really liking this lady. She has no family members. Her husband died years ago. They have a certain amount of wealth, but all her estate is going to one heir that's a friend of hers that gets it all. But what I notice is she has no family. And I see her in there on her deathbed, deteriorating every day, and she has no family. So I go in to see Marilyn every day, and I sit down with her for 10 to 15 minutes, and I talk to her for a while. She doesn't hear well, but most of the time I just hold her hand. And I'm holding her hands, and she's looking at me. She's kind of rubbing my hand like this, like in appreciation for me holding her hand. And I just look at her and I talk to her and tell her that I love her, and it's okay. And every day, I go in there for 10 or 15 minutes, every day 10 or 15 minutes. My mother found out, and she said, well, I know Marilyn. And she said, I forgot to go see her. I said, Mom, probably at this stage it's not, it's probably inappropriate for me to bring you into there because she may not know who you are, and I don't have that privilege. She said, well, if I had gone to see her, I would have sung to her. I said, well, that would have been very nice for you to do that. She said, well, I've got an idea. I'm back in St. Petersburg, and I'm not coming down there, and it sounds like she's not going to be around long. Why don't you sing to her? I said, Mom, I've been a pastor 44 years. I've been in thousands of hospital rooms, and I've never sung to anyone yet, particularly if they're on their deathbed, because they may say, I'm checking out before the end of the song. She said, I've heard you sing. You could sing fine. I go, Mom, I'm not going to sing. Well, you should. I go, Mom, you ever have a mother that's 99 years old telling you what to do? Welcome to my world. Mama, you're probably watching this today. I love you dearly. It's much better for them if you sing to them and I pray with them and I hold their hand. But here's the thing. In those last weeks, I have plenty of things to do, but in my quiet time, my priority is I need to go spend time with Marilyn. That bumps to the top of my schedule. And if you did not know, 4 weeks ago this Tuesday, 3.5 weeks ago, my wife, Becky, whom I've been married to for almost 50 years, she had knee replacement surgery. So I took a week off work and stayed at home, and I became her caregiver. And I went into it with both eyes open, saying I'm going to be the best caregiver she's ever had or anyone has ever been. Fair enough? And I waited on her hand and foot and knee. Mm-hmm. And people said she's recovered so quickly. I said, it's because of her caregiver.
That's right.
It's about me helping her. But here's the thing. What is my priority? My wife has knee replacement, and I go to work and leave her by herself? Absolutely not. When it came time for food, I'm not a cook. But I made my way out to get food every day and bring it back in, fully cooked food. And I provided for her because it's what we do. And some of you are so kind and so generous. She has plenty of flowers, and thanks for the chicken noodle soup, Sherry. Appreciate that. But she didn't get any, but I loved it. I'm just kidding. But it's so many good things, but you have to take a moment and put first things first.
That's right.
When someone's in a crisis, in my heart, when I'm quiet with God, He helps me set my priority. Because guess what's easiest for me? Is not to go pray or not stay home. It's easier for me to go to work. But what's my priority? God whispers to me and says, this is where you need to be. Yeah. This is what you need to do. And follow this. Because what happens so many times, priority determines capacity. You've heard the story about, you got to get the most important things in first. When you go on vacation, we load our luggage. Now, sometimes there's 7 of us getting in a 7-passenger vehicle. You got to get all the luggage in there too. And you got to get the big bags in first, right? You can't put the little things in. And sometimes the stuff that's not mine can be left behind. That important stuff, but you put the important things in first. Second thing is, if you're moving, and all of us have moved at some point, when you load a moving truck, you got to get the big furniture in first. It's one of the lessons of life. I love this lesson, and there's a guy that taught this to a bunch of students. He had a big glass jar. He says, "Is this glass full or empty?" They said, "It's empty." He put big rocks in it. He says, "Is it full or empty?" They said, "It's full," because you couldn't put any more big rocks in. He goes, "Watch." And he poured some fine gravel down all around it, all the way up to the top. He says, "Is it full now?" They said, "Yeah, it's full." He said, "Not yet." He poured sand in there and shook it down to where there's sand in there. "Is it full now?" "No." They said, "Yeah, no." Put water in it. And finally, it's all the way full with water. "Is it full now?" He said, "Yes, it's absolutely full now." What's the lesson of the story? If you don't put the big rocks in first, you'll never get them in. They have to go in first. Priority determines capacity. We get the most important things in our life taken care of, and how do we find those? Sometimes we need to get out of the franticness of life and pull back. For me, in my quiet time, God orders my private world. Gordon MacDonald wrote a book, Ordering Your Private World. Decades ago, I read this, and I've been practicing this my entire life. Now, sometimes I'll miss a day, and I miss it. When I don't do it, I miss it because it allows me to be a better human being. You know, so we get more productive with margin. Put the big things in first. We think that's important.
That's it. And what Paul is saying in that verse about being wise and how we live, it's understanding wisdom is saying no to the urgent so I could say yes to the important. When my children are here, my phone is off. My phone is off. And I come back to text messages, direct messages. "We need you for this and this." Sorry, I understand it's urgent, but this is important. Richard Rohr says this: the opposite of faith is not doubt, it's our attempt to control. We try to control outcomes, but here's the thing. Think about this and why prioritizing what's important is beneficial. I love zombie movies. That's my favorite genre of movie. The best zombie movie, in my opinion, is called World War Z with Brad Pitt. He's a very attractive man, right? And Brad is a doctor. And this zombie outbreak is happening. Cities are burning. Chaos is everywhere. People are running. The world is literally falling apart. It's complete panic. But right in the middle of all of this chaos, Brad's character, his name is Dr. Jerry Lane, he stops. He doesn't run with the crowd, and he pauses long enough to notice something. While everyone else is frantic, he is watching. And he sees something very interesting, something strange. The zombies are not attacking sick people. In that moment of stillness, that pause, it changes everything about the movie because he took the time to look for what others could not see, and he finds the key to saving humanity. Now, Paul says, be wise on how you live because the days are evil. I don't interpret evil as being evil. I think the days are chaotic. The days are busy. You could say in a culture that pushes panic and hurry and noise, we have to stop and pause to see what God is doing. Just like Brad had to pause and see, why are these zombies not attacking these people but everyone else? Most of us, if we're being honest, we live our lives like we're extras in an apocalyptic movie. We react to things that upset us instead of discerning what truly matters. We run from one thing to the next. And here's the thing, in the blur of us trying to survive, we miss what is truly sacred. I see God everywhere. Everywhere. There is no place I can go where I don't see God. Now, how, Troy? How do you get to see God? Are you just holier than us? Absolutely not. Because I'm looking. I'm looking for God. And the scriptures say, if you seek, you will find. If you knock, it's going to be answered. I see God in the sunsets. I see God in the touch of my wife's hand. I hear God in the laughter of my children, in the hugs that I give to them. I want to say this as strongly as I can. God's revelation is not rare. Our attention to it is. God is revealing himself every day, but we're just not attentive to that revelation. Look for him and you'll find. That leads to point number 3, our final point. Make your alone time with God a priority. Listen to what Jesus says in Matthew 6:33. He says, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all of these things will be given to you as well.
Yeah, there's something rich and powerful about saying, I have control of my time. But let me suggest to you, if I pull out my phone, which is my calendar, and I realize all the things that are on there, just because I don't have anything going on Friday doesn't mean I should fill it up with something that I don't want to do. Fair enough? And this happens to me regularly. My family loves to go to Universal Studios, and I don't. So are you going? Of course I go. Why are you going? Because Becky says so. No, because my family is a priority, and I don't want to miss my grandchildren growing up and their grandfather around. It's not about those things. What I've discovered in my time is that ordering your private world, if I could suggest do anything in your life, it'd be this: take a moment, pull back, and reflect. With reflection, it's just thinking about it. Don't talk to God, just reflect on him. And God, this is a busy time, and I've got things, and all of a sudden, as he begins to help you order your private world, things begin to happen. So with my reflection, I find a connection. And with the connection, all of a sudden, I look at my schedule, and there's a correction. I'm so sorry I can't do that this week. I'm not able to do this. The other things are more important. I need to make sure priority determines capacity. I cannot be overwhelmed, or could be. I choose not to be. These are principles of life that Troy and I both, if we're honest with you, we say, we're busy, and we can struggle with this, and we do. But that which levels the playing field for me is that quiet time in the morning saying, look, get back on track. Making time alone with God is a priority for me, and I would challenge you. So there's something that happens when I choose to put God in my life first, when I put him on my schedule first. I'm going to give him the first minutes of my day every day. And there's a couple of things you can do today, practical ways. And you say, well, you have a watch. How many of you have a watch? You wear a watch. Just curious. Raise your hand. Here's a suggestion to you. Pick up your watch in the morning, and as you grab it before you put it on your wrist, say, God, today, my time belongs to you. And some of you say, I don't have a watch. I live by this device. And okay, not only do you have your time on this, but you also have your calendar on this. God, today, I just want you to know before I fill this thing up, I need to reevaluate. What is it that you want me to do with my life that has a value? And that priority of reflection, inspection, correction, all the different things that come with it. It happens when we use our watch. We use some very practical things. I cannot tell you how many times it's something very simple and very practical. And after we talked about this morning, one of the guys said, well, that was more practical than theological. I said, thank you. So was Jesus. He's all about you getting your heart right, getting your life right. It's not about trying to be theological or what the debate is about. It's what's your life doing, and how's it going, and how can it be better? These tips will help you. And as we go through this series, and this is just the week number 2, we got 3 more. We're going to hit some other areas of your life, not just your time, that you really need to look at and consider. And with God's help, maybe some correction can happen, or you'll feel more balanced in your life.
That's it. Because if we're being honest, I think part of what I love about Suncoast's mission is we try to be as intellectually honest as we can be. And sometimes that means calling out bad theology. But for us today, this practical teaching is if we're honest, most of us try to fit God into the margins after we've already filled the page. We give him the leftover minutes of our day. We give God the tired thoughts before we go to sleep, or the prayers that we whisper in traffic. But notice Jesus never says, seek God whenever you have a minute. He says, seek first God's kingdom. That word first doesn't mean to be first in order. It means to be first in importance. It's not, God, I'll fit you in if I can. It should be, God, everything fits in around you. Because here's the truth. When you put God first, everything starts to find its proper place and function. Relationships, marriages, decisions, my schedule, my work, they all begin to align. And this is what I want to say very powerfully, is that you can't have margin in your time until you make room for the one who created time. The truth is, your calendar reveals your kingdom. And if you want peace in your life, start with God's presence first in your schedule, and that will change everything.
Yeah. Now, I want to say very clearly, there are some of us in life that have busy week, and some of us have a busy life, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you say, you're overwhelmed right now, here's a grace card. You're going to be okay. But there will be a day soon where you can start practicing these principles. Even if you're busy, you start with God first.
That's right.
It doesn't take your whole schedule. It's a matter of putting first things first. And as you go through the busyness, at least you'll do it with the right priority. So, I love it when it says, here's what I see too often. If I don't do as much as I possibly can, I won't make it. My question is, what is it? If I don't do as much as I possibly can, I will fall behind. And I go, behind who or what? If I don't do as much as I can, I won't be acceptable. By whom? Acceptable to whom? I won't measure up to what? When we are driven internally to measure up, we miss God's best for us. The best is His grace. And what is His grace? It's His presence that lives in you every day. That you can't buy it. It's a gift from God.
That's right.
It's that which divinely enables you to live a Christ-like life. And that's the Spirit of God within you. So if we find the place of margin, I think we'll find a higher level of productivity no matter what we do.
Absolutely. Let's pray, Suncoast. Awesome God, as we sit in this moment in this strong teaching about time management and the theology of trusting you with that time. God, I pray that you would show us and reveal to us that our worth is not dependent upon how much work we do. God, we are always already loved, accepted as we are. And God, let us begin to prioritize our time with you at the center to see how it aligns with your will and your kingdom for the here and now. Pray this in the strong name of Christ. Amen.
Man. Would you stand, please? I would love to tell you a story in closing. Just had my cousin down to visit me again this week for about a day, and as he was here, I was reminded of a story. He's a big hunter, and he used to go out west to Colorado, and he would elk hunt on horseback. They'd rent horses because they go so far back into the mountains and stuff. If they did get an elk, they need to pack it back out. But he said going to their camp, they're riding on horseback, and the horses are rented from there. They know the trails. And as he's riding to camp, it's pitch black. And up in front of him, he can see just in the sky, the trees are parting, and it's opening up, and he thinks we're finally getting close to where we need to go. And as the horse gets close to that opening, the horse starts to turn left. He thought, this horse is going the wrong way. And he started to rein the horse back forward, and then he remembered the guy who rented the horse said, look, these horses can see better at night than you can. Trust them. You'll be better if you do. He said, when I rounded the corner and I looked off, well, I wanted them to go straight ahead, it was a cliff straight down. He said, I'm so glad I trusted that horse. So, can I remind you of a few things today? Number one, God sees better than we do. We may not see it all, but He does. And on our life's journey, remember, surrender the reins to Him. Trust Him. And as you do, remember these words too. We love you, and so does He. God bless you. Thanks for coming today.